Have you ever seen a new eyeshadow palette reveal and think, golly, that looks just like such and such? Well, I have that thought all the time, and it's actually really helpful to me when it comes to talking myself down or not giving in to FOMO or not buying duplicates in my collection. Honestly, I try to keep my collection curated so that everything is useful and has a purpose and I'm not repeating myself. I did recently do that and I was really annoyed with myself. I had a bunch of palettes come in, a lot were given to me, I bought one or two, and I ended up with two palettes that were really similar in color story. I actually did a whole video about it, comparing them, live swatching, because I don't want repeats in my collection. I don't want to have to choose between this formula I love and this formula I love if they're going to give me more or less the same result. So when I see new things come on the market, I like to compare them to what's already out, particularly if I already own it, or if I've already decided not to get it for XYZ reasons, because honestly, at the end of the day, it's all just colored shadow. So today I'm going to highlight some palettes that I think are really similar, and I would love to hear your thoughts, of course. If you're curious about today's eyeshadow look, it has been filmed as part of my week of the Adept Plain Jane palette. At the time that this video is going up, I'm not sure if that video is live or not, but you can check my channel for week of Plain Jane, and it's either there or it's gonna be coming. It's pretty, right? Okay, so let's first start with the Morphe 35C Everyday Chic, the ColourPop Lust for Dusk, and the Udenzai Jewels and Gem palettes. When Lust for Dusk came out, I thought it was really lovely, and there was something so appealing to me about those desaturated, soft, quiet colors. And then I happened to see this Morphe palette, which I don't even, honestly, I have no idea if it's even available anymore. I just happened to see it, and I thought, oh, that's actually kind of similar, again with the desaturated quiet colors. And then Udenzai released the Jewels and Gem, which I do own, and that one has these desaturated quiet colors. Everything's sort of like a quiet evening garden. That's the feel I get from these color stories. They're usually on the whole more cool toned and soft and gentle. They're just very gentle color stories. Nothing's too brash or in your face or wild pops of color. They're soft, they're quiet, and they're very beautiful. I was also thinking maybe the Muse palette from Cosmic Beauty or Cosmic Brushes, but Muse, I think, has a couple colors that are a bit more poppy, like a brighter, more vibrant green. So I didn't include that, but I absolutely could have in this comparison because it's similar, you know, they're all kind of close. So if you've got one, you might not really need the other ones. I mean, I have the Udenzai palette and I love it. It's so pretty. And honestly, every time I wear that Jewels and Gem palette, I feel pretty. I might not feel pretty all the time when I do my eyeshadow, and that's not my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is creative expression and feeling creative and artistic and playing with color. Feeling pretty is not my goal, but when I wear the Jewels and Gem palette, I feel pretty and soft and elegant. I also wanted to talk about the ColourPop Aurora Struck palette and compare it to the Adept Element 115 and the Cosmic Beauty or Brushes Winter Wonderland palette. I'm not sure which one came out first. I think Aurora Struck came out first, and then Adept and Winter Wonderland, they came out about the same time. And I remember comparing Winter Wonderland to the Element 115 and thinking they're both just so beautiful. And the biggest difference I see between them is that the Adept palette has a couple of the more orangey pink tones, which Winter Wonderland doesn't have. Now, I will also say the promo photos for Winter Wonderland were very blue. They were very icy feeling cold, and that may actually have detracted a bit from the shadows themselves because now I own that palette. One of my subscribers sent it to me, and it's a beautiful palette, and it's quite blue and purple heavy, obviously, but it does have some other tones. It has a couple of shifting shades that will pull more green or pull more golden or pull a little bit more pinky orange, and I think that if Cosmic Beauty had geared their promo photos to be a little bit less blue, icy cold, then maybe we would have seen those other shifting tones a little bit better. On the whole, I think that the Adept palette definitely embraces those orangey pink colors more, but again, the color stories are all similar. And the Aurora Struck palette from ColourPop is a beautiful one, honestly. It's very pretty. They did a great job with the packaging, and it's this same color story. It's aurora lights, it's blues and purples, some pinky tones, some silver, very cool toned, very winter time. It's beautiful, but at the end of the day, do we really need all of them? And it might sometimes just come down to formula. Which formula do you like the best? If you've tried all three, you might be able to say, I like this formula the best, and the color stories are all close enough, so I think I'll entertain the idea of getting that one. Some time ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, Angelica Nyquist did a whole video about the best berry palette, and she compared several in her collection that were all along the berry theme. So let's talk about the Melt She's in Parties, which was part of Angie's video, the Natasha Denona Retro, which I think was part of the video and which I do own, and also the Dose of Colors Marvelous Mauves. I don't remember if that was part of her video, but these are all very berry toned palettes, very pink leaning berries, reddish leaning berries, purple leaning berries, but all solidly berry. You don't have a lot of true purples or reds or pinks. It's all kind of in that middling area. There's some overlap, but they're all kind of wine berry sorts of colors. Really pretty. So when I look at these three palettes next to each other, the Melt palette has more shades than Dose of Colors, smaller pans. Dose of Colors has the larger pans, different format, etc. And then I think the Indie Retro palette has the most shades. These are all quite comparable. You're not going to get a huge variety of looks using these palettes, and if you have one, you'll probably get basically the same kinds of looks with the others. I mean, I have the Retro palette and it's very, very good. The quality is excellent. It's just not the most exciting palette because it's kind of like a monochromatic color family. You certainly have a range of depth, light and dark. You've got some more neutral leaning or more purple leaning. You've got lots of transition shades and shimmers with different plays, but on the whole, it's a berry palette. So you're going to get a berry look. And that's just what it is. And I think that that's the case for all three of these palettes. If that's what you want, it's absolutely what you're going to get. It might just come down to what's available and what formula you like the most. ColourPop is getting a lot of mentions in today's video, and I think that's because they release a lot. And in releasing a lot, they tend to dupe themselves or at least overlap themselves significantly. So let's talk about the Winnie the Pooh palette and the Sandstone palette. There was some drama when Sandstone was first released. They repackaged and relabeled some names, some shade names, I think. Then they re-released it with new packaging. And then sometime later, they released the Winnie the Pooh palette. And I had Sandstone. I think somebody gave it to me. I was planning on getting it, and then someone ended up sending it to me. And then I was tempted by the Winnie the Pooh palette because it was just so darn cute. It was so cute. I really like the pan shapes that are like a honeycomb. I thought the packaging was so sweet. And the color story was kind of the neutrals that I was looking to play with. And then somebody pointed out to me that they're actually basically the same colors. If I recall, I think Sandstone is bigger. All of this is off the top of my head and from memory because I wrote down the comparisons that I had written in my phone ages ago, and my phone's recording, and so this is just what I remember. So if I remember, the Sandstone palette has more pans and Winnie the Pooh is more curated, but really I've seen them swatched next to each other. They're pretty much the same. Winnie the Pooh is all of the shades that are in Sandstone, and then Sandstone has more. So if you got one, you don't really need the other. And as far as the quality goes, you're going to get the same quality, presumably, from ColourPop either way. It might just come down to packaging, like which packaging do you like better, or are there colors in Sandstone that you really, really want, which Winnie the Pooh doesn't offer, and that could help you decide. But really, these are very, very similar color stories. Finally, let's talk about Unearthly and Ace Beauté. Ace Beauté released the Flare palette some time ago. They even included it in their new formulation, their reformulation. And then, maybe a year or so ago, or maybe a year and a half, I don't know, Unearthly Cosmetics released the Leather and Lace palette. And when I saw Leather and Lace, I thought, wow, that looks a lot like Flare. And I should know, because Flare has been one of my favorites from the beginning. I actually enjoyed it so much that I bought a replacement in the new formula. So when I saw the Leather and Lace color story, all I could think about was, we already have that in Flare. Granted, they're different companies, of course. I'm not saying anything bad about a company releasing their own stuff, even if it looks like a different company's stuff. They're not claiming to be dupes. They're not stealing the packaging or the design ideas. It's just how many differences can we come up with, over the course of time with more and more releases. But I wasn't at all drawn to Leather and Lace. I didn't love the theme. Generally, I don't love Unearthly's themes, even though I hear the quality is amazing. But the color story was so much like Flare, and actually I think Flare was better because the pan sizes were not as big, so you get more pans and therefore more color options, and they also had a lot more color choices. You've got like an acid yellowy green, you've got a sky blue shimmer. It just has more color choices, which all work beautifully with that color story. So leather and lace was nice, but actually I think that the Flare palette was better, more well-rounded, and more appropriate theming, we'll say, and the reformulation was beautiful. So if you've got one, you really don't need the other one. And there you go. There's a nice handful of palettes that are comparable to others on the market. Some of these might be discontinued, but I think a lot of them are still available. If you have some of these, do let me know. If you have any palettes on your mind that like this one is just like this one, let me know that too, because I'll probably do this video again with another handful of palettes. I think it is so helpful to do this, at least speaking for myself, because if I have the Flare palette, I'm not going to be tempted by leather and lace. They're basically the same thing. You know, it's really, really helpful for me to look objectively at an item and really assess the merits, the value, and whether or not it's different, whether or not I would like it, the branding, the theme, the formulation. Should I maybe at some point want to bring that into my collection, or is it unnecessary? Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your comments and your thoughts and your feedback, of course. You guys know I always enjoy chatting with you in the comment section. I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing before you go if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.